You're joking, right? I asked, frozen mid-motion with one sock dangling from my hand. Melissa stood in front of the hallway mirror, adjusting her earrings. Her eyeliner was already razor sharp. Which part exactly do you think I'm joking about, Nathan? I stepped into the kitchen, my voice climbing despite myself. The part where you casually announce you're skipping the party tonight because Kira turned it into a girls-only thing, like it's no big deal. We've had this marked on the calendar for weeks. She didn't even glance over. It's not a crisis. Just go without me. It's a couple's party, I said, fighting to keep my tone steady. Leo specifically asked if we were both coming. You know how seldom we get real time with them. I see Leo every couple of weeks when he drops by the office, she replied, finally turning to face me, arms folded tight. You'll survive. I stared at her. So that's it. Plans shift and too bad for me. Melissa rolled her eyes and tucked a curl behind her ear. Why are you turning this into something about you? That sentence lit the fuse. Because I planned this for us, I said louder now. I was actually looking forward to it. I bought wine. I even ironed a shirt, which you know I only do when you ask me to. She gave a short scoff. Don't act like you were getting ready for senior prom. It's a backyard barbecue. My jaw tightened. And you were perfectly fine with it until 10 minutes ago. Plans change, she said. Kira's been struggling a lot lately, and she wanted a space just for the women. Emotional support, you know? Did you even tell her we were planning to come as a couple? She paused. No, I didn't think it was worth the argument. I blinked. Wow. So not only are you bailing, you didn't even bother defending our original plan. Melissa turned back to the mirror. God, Nathan, this isn't some betrayal. I'm going to hang out with my friends. What's with the theatrics? I moved closer. The theatrics are you making solo decisions and treating me like an optional add-on in my own marriage? Like I'm background music you can mute whenever it suits you. Her voice turned to ice. You're overreacting. Am I? I asked quieter now. Because it doesn't feel that way from here. A long pause stretched between us like a challenge. Then she sighed and checked her phone. I'm leaving in 5. If you're going to sulk, at least keep it quiet. I watched her slide her heels on as though none of this registered, as though I were just a breeze passing through her carefully arranged life. Do you even care how this lands for me? I asked. That made her pause at the threshold. She looked at me, not irritated, not furious, just blank. I care about not feeling suffocated, she said, soft but cutting. Lately, everything with you feels like a chore. That one sliced deep. I swallowed hard. She opened the door. Have a nice night. Maybe call one of your friends, play cards, do whatever you do when I'm not keeping you entertained. Then she was gone. No hug, no kiss goodbye, just the sharp click of her heels fading down the walkway and the door closing like an unfinished sentence. I stood alone in the kitchen, still wearing one sock, staring at the empty space she'd occupied. My phone buzzed on the counter. Leo again. You guys heading over? I looked at the screen, typed back. Melissa bailed. Catch you another time. Sent. I set the phone down gently, opened the wine anyway, and poured a glass. The living room looked too perfect, too still, and all I could think was how deafening silence becomes when someone chooses not to show up. Not just to an event, but to you. The next morning the sky was heavy gray, the kind that makes everything feel muted. I was up before the coffee finished brewing. Out of habit I made 2 mugs, then stood holding hers, unsure whether to leave it or dump it. Eventually I carried it into the living room. Melissa was curled on the couch in her robe, legs tucked under, scrolling her phone. No good morning, no eye contact, just the cold blue glow on her face. I set her mug on the coffee table. I was thinking, I began, keeping my voice level, maybe we could get away for the weekend, just us. That barely got her attention. She glanced up, one brow arched. Where? Lake Geneva, I said. That little cabin we stayed in last spring. You loved it. The fireplace, that huge claw-foot tub you photographed a million times. She blinked, tilted her head. You want a couple's getaway now? I shrugged. I thought it might help. Some time to talk. No distractions. She let out a small, dry laugh and leaned back. Nathan, no offense, But I don't think soaking in a rented tub is going to solve anything. It's not about solving, I said carefully. It's about trying. I'm still here. I'm willing. She answered flatly, because nothing says romance like a desperate cabin trip. I sat on the arm of the opposite chair. You know what actually says romance? Respect, listening, showing up. She lowered her phone, eyes narrowing. Don't turn this into you being the injured party. You've been distant for months, Nathan. I go out one night and suddenly I'm the bad guy. I didn't bite. I just nodded slowly. Okay, so you're not interested. She rolled her eyes. No, I'm not. I don't need a cabin in the woods. I need people who actually see me. My friends get me more than you have lately. The words landed with a dull thud. I looked at her, not angry, just clear. I stood, smoothed my shirt, picked up my keys. Thanks for the conversation, I said, calm as still water before a storm. She blinked. That's it? I nodded, heading for the door. Yeah, that's it. No slam door, no dramatic exhale, no final jab. Just a quiet step into the cold November air and the soft click of the latch behind me. No theatrics, just silence. Inside, I pictured her still standing there, phone in hand, unsure whether to keep scrolling or finally set it down. Because something had shifted. I hadn't shouted, I hadn't begged, and that, more than anything, rattled her. I drove with the windows cracked, letting the wind strip the leftover heat from my chest. I wasn't fleeing, and I wasn't pursuing. I just needed enough space to remember who I was before Melissa started treating me like wallpaper in our own home. The lake wasn't going anywhere. Maybe I'd go alone, and maybe that would be the whole point. 2 days later, the house sounded different. Laughter bounced off the walls, glasses clinked, soft jazz hummed underneath the conversation. The scent of grilled steak and roasted garlic floated from the kitchen while I leaned against the counter, sipping bourbon. I hadn't hosted in months. It used to be Melissa's domain, candles placed just right, playlists curated for maximum impression. This one was mine, casual, last minute. A handful of close friends, Leo and his wife, plus his younger sister Jenna. Bright, sharp-witted, confident in that effortless way that needs no approval. I hadn't invited her on purpose. She just tagged along with Leo. And honestly, it felt good, natural, no tightrope. Jenna stood beside me now, laughing at one of Leo's ridiculous stories. She nudged me. You used to be way funnier in college. When did you get so serious? I got tamed, I said with a half smile, raising my glass. But I'm staging a comeback. She smirked, eyes playful. So far, so good. This is the most relaxed I've seen you in forever. I glanced around, everyone smiling, music pulsing low, fireplace crackling. The place felt like mine again. This house, this moment. Me. Then my phone buzzed. Melissa. Don't wait up tonight. No context, no warmth. Just 7 icy words. I stared at the message a beat too long. Leo noticed. Everything okay? Yeah, I said simply. I lifted the phone and, without hesitation, angled it toward Jenna. She caught on instantly, leaned in close with a sly grin, and tilted her head against mine. Click. I typed, Nathan, don't worry, no one's waiting for you. Sent. No emoji, no explanation. Just that. Jenna gave a soft laugh, unaware of the full weight of what she'd just helped create. Revenge or warning shot? Call it balance, I said, tossing the phone onto the counter like it weighed nothing. But it did. It really did. 15 minutes later, the front door burst open. Melissa, hair half straightened, still in her black blazer, heels striking the hardwood like gunfire. Are you serious right now, Nathan? The music cut out. Conversations died mid-sentence. She stormed into the kitchen, eyes locked on mine. Leo instinctively stepped back, clearing space. You think that photo was funny? You want to play games now? I met her anger with calm. You said, don't wait, so I didn't. You're standing there grinning like this is a joke, she snapped. Is that Jenna? Really? That's who you picked to make your point? Jenna blinked, caught off guard. I'm not part of whatever this is. I raised a hand to her. You're fine, Jenna. This isn't about you. I turned back to Melissa. You claimed your night. I claimed mine. Fair's fair, right? Her voice cracked, still furious, but something else bleeding through. You're unbelievable. No, I said, low and clear. What's unbelievable is thinking you could keep walking out of this house with zero consequences. She glanced around, suddenly aware of the audience. Her volume dropped. Can we talk alone? I nodded toward the hallway. Bedrooms are that way. Go ahead. I'll be there in a minute. She spun and marched off, heels hammering the floor. I turned to the awkward guests clutching their drinks. Sorry about the drama. Happens when people don't knock. Leo let out a short laugh. You good? I nodded. Give me 5. In the bedroom, Melissa paced like a broken metronome. I can't believe you humiliated me like that. I leaned against the doorframe. You humiliated yourself. You checked out of this marriage weeks ago. I'm just finally learning to breathe again. She threw her hands up. So what now? You just entertain whoever walks in? No, I said quietly. I host my friends. I take back my peace. And I stop waiting for someone who leaves without looking back. She opened her mouth, but I was already walking past her. Back to the living room. Back to my night. Back to people who didn't make me feel invisible. I picked up my glass. So, where were we? Jenna raised hers with a playful smirk. You were about to stage that comeback. And for the first time in ages, I believed her. Morning light slipped through the kitchen window, soft and hazy, turning leftover wine glasses into scattered prisms. The house still carried faint traces of grilled meat and laughter. I stood at the sink, sleeves rolled, rinsing plates from the night before. The dishwasher hummed until I heard slippers shuffling behind me. Melissa, in my old college hoodie, hair in a messy knot, no makeup, no armor. Just her, quieter than usual. She didn't speak at first, just grabbed a trash bag and started collecting napkins and half-eaten snacks from the counter. It felt surreal. We moved around each other like co-workers sharing a break room sink, efficient, cautious, not hostile, but far from warm. She broke the silence. Your party looked fun, she said, eyes on the counter. It was, I answered simply, setting a clean glass on the rack. A beat, then another. She straightened slowly, tone deliberately casual. That girl in the photo? Was that Leo's sister? I didn't pause. Yeah, Jenna. Melissa nodded. She looked comfortable. Comfortable? I echoed, glancing over. She forced a small smile. I mean, you two looked close in the picture. I dried my hands. She's easy to talk to. Doesn't try to own the room. Just listens. The words hit. I saw it in the slight stiffening of her shoulders, the twitch in her jaw, the sudden intense focus on knotting the trash bag. I see, she said, clipped. I leaned against the counter watching her. It's rare to feel heard without having to justify yourself. Melissa kept her back to me, staring at the closed bin. That must be nice, she said finally. It was, I answered. Not cruel, just honest. She turned then, arms crossed, trash bag forgotten at her feet. I didn't mean for things to get so... She searched for the word. Quiet, I supplied. She nodded. Yeah. I gave her the faintest real smile. Not sarcastic, not bitter. Neither did I. And with that, I picked up another glass, ran it under warm water, and let the silence return. Not oppressive, not sharp, just different. Like we were both noticing the same thing at the same moment, but neither of us was brave enough to name it yet. 3 evenings later, I stood in front of the hallway mirror, buttoning a navy shirt I hadn't worn in years. Crisp collar, sleeves neatly rolled. Not for work, not for show, just for me. A faint cedar cologne lingered on the fabric like an old memory I hadn't revisited in a while. Going somewhere? Melissa's voice drifted in from the living room. I didn't answer immediately, just adjusted my watch, took one last look at the man in the reflection, then stepped into the hall. Meeting Leo at the Velvet Note, jazz night. She looked up from the couch, sweats blanket over her legs, but her face held something I hadn't seen in ages. Uncertainty. You didn't mention any plans, she said almost too casually. Didn't think I needed to, I replied, reaching for my coat. She sat up straighter. You haven't seemed like the jazz type lately. I offered a small smile. I'm rediscovering a few things. She folded the blanket over the armrest. I could come along. if Leo's okay with it. There it was, the offer. A month earlier, I would have jumped at it out of habit, out of hope. But now I slipped on my jacket and faced her. I'd rather go alone tonight. She blinked. Alone? Yeah, I said gently. I've been needing space. Not the angry kind, just enough room to hear myself again. She drew a breath, arms crossing, almost protectively. Is this because of the other night? No, I said. It's because of every night before that. Her lips parted like she wanted to argue, but the words wouldn't come. She just watched me, eyes tracing the unfamiliar calm in my stance. I picked up my keys. I'll be back late. Don't wait up. Nathan, she said quickly, taking a half step forward. You're different. I paused, hand on the knob. No, I'm just finally acting like myself. I opened the door. Cold evening air swept in, brushing past us both like a curtain shifting. I stepped outside and closed the door softly behind me. Inside, I imagined her still standing in that warm, dim room, staring at the space I'd left. Not because I was punishing her, but because, for the first time, she wasn't automatically part of wherever I was going. And that, more than anything I could have said, told her she had to earn her way back in. The corner booth at the Velvet Note was low lit, tucked away from the gentle clink of glasses and the warm breath of a saxophone floating through the room. The place wasn't crowded, but it hummed with quiet sophistication. Familiar faces, easy laughter, no forced smiles. I sat across from Leo, a glass of good bourbon warming my palm. He stirred his old-fashioned slowly, waiting for me to reach whatever I needed to say. You ever look at your life and feel like you're just visiting it instead of living it? I asked. He smiled behind the rim of his glass. That the question you've been carrying since the appetizers? Maybe. Leo leaned back, elbows on the polished wood. This about Melissa? I nodded. I don't think we're partners anymore. Not in the ways that count. His expression didn't change. No surprise. Leo had seen this coming long before I admitted it. She used to ask about my day like she actually wanted the answer, I said. Now it feels like we're both narrating separate shows under the same roof. Leo gave a soft snort. Been there. We paused as the server set down a small plate of pecan pie. Leo thanked her, then turned back. Do you still love her? I didn't answer right away. I don't know, I admitted. I think I love the version of her I used to know. Now I'm not sure whether I'm grieving her or myself. Leo nodded, no need for clarification. Sometimes relationships don't explode. They just run out of fuel. Yeah, I said, swirling the amber in my glass. That's exactly what it feels like. No momentum. No reasons left. We sat with that for a moment. Remember that summer after graduation? Leo said suddenly. We drove my beat-up Jeep to Nashville, ran out of cash halfway, and lived on canned beans and gas station jerky for 2 days. I laughed into my drink. And you got so sunburned your ears peeled like old paint. Worth it, he said. Back then everything was a maybe. Now it's just calendars, appointments, and making sure the recycling goes out. Exactly, I muttered. Leo leaned forward. Let me ask you something. Are you done? I met his eyes. With what? Trying? I didn't know how to answer right away. Part of me had been trying alone for so long, I'd forgotten what being met halfway felt like. The other part was exhausted, bone-deep, tired. I think, I said carefully, I'm done trying to hold it all up by myself. Leo raised his glass. Then maybe it's not about ending something. Maybe it's about stopping what hurts. We clinked glasses quietly. The saxophone slid into a minor key. The lights overhead flickered just enough to wash the table in warm gold. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I wasn't trapped in someone else's story. I was just a man sitting with his friend, breathing his own air. It was a little past midnight when I pulled into the driveway. The street lay quiet under amber streetlights. A few porch lights glowed down the block. But our house, my house, was fully lit. She was waiting. I stepped inside. The door clicked shut with soft finality, and there she stood. Melissa in the center of the living room, arms crossed, barefoot, expression unreadable but brittle. She'd changed out of sweats into the soft maroon sweater I'd bought her on that rainy anniversary trip to Asheville. Her eyes rimmed with unshed tears, fixed on me like I'd just come home from another woman. Did you have fun? She asked, not curious, edged. I hung my coat. Yeah, good to catch up. She followed me a few steps toward the kitchen. You didn't text. You said not to wait up. Her voice cracked. That's not what I meant, and you know it. I reached for a glass and filled it slowly at the sink, not turning around. The silence between her sentences was louder than the running water. Who were you really with? She asked. I took a sip before answering. Leo and Jenna, she pressed. I finally turned to face her. You're really asking me that? She hesitated. You seem different. You're pulling away. I leaned against the counter, voice low. No, I'm just not chasing anymore. That stopped her cold. She blinked hard. So that's it. You're done. I've been trying for a long time, I said. Trying to be patient. Trying to talk when you'd rather hide behind your phone. Trying to make plans you cancel at the last second. I stopped asking why. I stopped reacting. And now you want the passion back. Tears thickened in her eyes. I don't know how to reach you anymore. You're colder than I've ever seen you. No, I said gently. I'm just not bleeding for this every day. She stepped toward me fast, anger rising under the hurt. Then what do you want from me, Nathan? Should I beg? Cry? Sleep with someone else just to make you feel something again? I flinched, not from the words but from how far she was willing to push. You don't have to break things just to see what I'll do, I said calmly. That used to work. Not anymore. Her voice dropped, trembling. Do you even love me anymore? I looked at her, not cruelly, but with the clarity that comes after months of scraping away disappointment like dead skin. I don't think that's the real question you're asking. Then what is? She whispered. You want to know if I still hurt? I said. If I still get angry, still light up or fall apart over you. But you can't feel anything when you're numb. And I've been numb for a while. Melissa covered her face with both hands and sank onto the arm of the couch, shoulders hunched under the weight of the words. I don't know how we got here, she murmured. I glanced around, at the photos, the piled mail, the vase she'd chosen 2 years ago. I do, I said. We stopped being us and became two people quietly resenting things we couldn't name. She lifted her head. So what now? We just go to bed like everything's fine? No, I said. We go to bed knowing everything isn't. I walked past her, set my glass in the sink, and headed down the hall. Nathan, she said. Not a question. More like saying a name when you realize the conversation isn't just ending. It's closing a chapter. I paused. I'm not being cruel, I said, back still to her. I'm being honest. Then I continued down the hallway, leaving her sitting there in the quiet, not alone, but no longer certain where she stood. 3 days passed in near silence. We moved around each other like fog around streetlights, present but barely touching. Meals were wordless. Lights flicked on and off without discussion. She slept on the far edge of the mattress, if she came to bed at all, and I didn't chase. On the 4th morning, I came downstairs and found her already at the kitchen table, still in her robe, coffee in hand, eyes focused but guarded. Her hair was pulled back, but loose strands framed her forehead like she hadn't bothered to fix them. Nathan, she said evenly, we should talk. I took a mug from the cabinet and filled it without asking. Okay. She waited until I sat across from her. I've been thinking, she began. This, whatever we're doing now, isn't working. I think we should stop pretending. I took a sip. The coffee wasn't hot enough. I didn't react. Okay, I said. She blinked. That's it. You brought it up. I'm agreeing. I'm saying I want a divorce, she said sharper, as if I hadn't heard her correctly. I met her eyes directly. I know, and you're probably right. For a split second, something fractured across her face. Disbelief. That's all you have to say? I set the mug down. You've been gone for months, Melissa. This isn't news to me. You're not even going to try to talk me out of it? I've tried, I said, calm and steady. You weren't listening. Not when I asked to talk. Not when I suggested we get away. Not when I stood in this kitchen asking if you even cared. Her voice broke. You're really just letting me go. I'm letting go of carrying this alone, I said. There's a difference. Tears gathered, angry, sharp-edged. You know what's worse than leaving? She said, rising from the chair. Being the only one who ever mattered enough to fight for. I held her gaze. You mattered. That's why I fought. But after a while, I realized I was fighting myself. And the version of you I was holding on to isn't the one sitting here now. She clenched her jaw. Unbelievable. You're just ice. No, I said gently, standing too. I'm just empty. She stepped back, grabbed her phone and purse without another word. I followed her to the front door, not to stop her, just to see her out, like watching a last train pull away. Her hand was on the knob when she turned back, eyes wide and wet. This isn't how I thought it would end, she whispered. Neither did I said. But it's still ending. She flung the door open and left. This time she slammed it. The courthouse smelled of floor wax and quiet desperation. I sat on a bench outside the hearing room, fingers laced, watching a clock that barely moved. Across from me, Melissa sat rigid in her blazer, arms crossed, legs angled away. We hadn't spoken since she walked out 2 weeks earlier. She looked composed, confident, like this was an upgrade, not a collapse. When her attorney arrived, tall, fast-talking, overly polished, he greeted her with a smirk and a thick folder. She leaned in, listening like she was receiving a blueprint for a better life. My lawyer was simpler. Tom, an older man who'd handled my father's affairs for decades. Gray hair, steel eyes, the kind of stillness people underestimate. Ready? He asked. I nodded. The hearing room was small, just a judge, a clerk, 2 attorneys, and the accumulated weight of everything we'd let slip away. Melissa didn't look at me as we sat. She stared straight ahead, posture rigid, braced to win. Her lawyer opened aggressively. Your Honor, my client seeks equitable division of assets and spousal support. She has invested emotionally and domestically in this marriage for over 6 years. The judge raised an eyebrow. And the assets in question? The primary residence, a 2020 Lexus RX, and a joint savings account of approximately $118,000. Tom stood calmly. Your Honor, all 3 assets, the house, the vehicle, and the account, are titled solely in Mr. Keller's name and predate the marriage. Melissa's head snapped toward me. What? Tom continued smoothly. The house and car were inherited from Mr. Keller's late father. The savings account was established in Nathan's name by his family's estate prior to the wedding. Documentation is provided. Melissa's attorney stammered, flipping pages. But she lived there. She maintained the household. Tom nodded politely. Mr. Keller paid every bill, every credit card statement, even Miss Keller's student loans, and respectfully funded her online boutique venture. Melissa looked stunned, like someone had quietly moved the finish line. The judge reviewed the documents and leaned back. This is not a marital property matter. This is a dissolution of a living arrangement. There is no shared estate. Melissa's voice cracked. That can't be right. That house, he always said it was ours. I looked at her then, for the first time that morning. It felt like ours, I said, because I wanted it to. But it wasn't. It was mine, just like I covered everything else because I believed in us. Her lips parted, but nothing came out. Tom went on. My client is not requesting alimony. He asked only for closure. Melissa's lawyer whispered urgently, but she wasn't listening. Her eyes were locked on me, wide with disbelief, edging into panic. You're just going to walk away with everything? She whispered. No, I said evenly. I already walked away with nothing. Everything else is just furniture. That broke her. She stood abruptly, voice too loud for the room. You think you're better than me? You always did. You think your name on a deed makes you some saint? Your father would be ashamed. The room went still. Even the judge looked up. I exhaled slowly. My father trusted me to build something real. I spent years trying to do that with you. Through every mood swing, every cold shoulder, every conversation you walked away from. I supported you through college, job changes, your startup, your silences. I fought for you every day. But I'm done fighting someone who only shows up when it's time to collect. Melissa stood frozen. Her attorney tugged lightly at her sleeve, but she didn't move. I didn't gloat. I didn't raise my voice. I just said what needed saying. The judge spoke. Petition granted, divorce finalized. No assets awarded, no further discussion. The gavel fell. That was it. Melissa didn't storm out. She just sat, hands shaking, trying to absorb that the life she thought she'd walked away from had already locked its doors behind her. I stood, buttoned my jacket, and walked past her. Slow, steady, not triumphant, just free. Exactly 32 days after the gavel fell, and my name was no longer legally tied to hers, the house felt quieter, but not hollow. I'd begun filling it with different things. Old vinyl from college, books I hadn't opened in years, the smell of real coffee in the mornings. Peace didn't arrive in a rush. It settled gradually, the way sunlight creeps across the floor after a long rain. Then came the knock. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened the door, Melissa stood there. She looked like sleep had forgotten her. Hair unbrushed, dark circles, an oversized sweater slipping off one shoulder. She clutched her phone in both hands like a lifeline. "Hi," she said softly. I didn't speak. Her eyes filled almost instantly, though no tears spilled. "Can I come in?" I held the door open wordlessly. She stepped inside like a visitor in a house she used to own. She paused in the entryway, glancing around. Not nostalgic, more like confirming something had changed. "It looks different," she said. I nodded. "It is." She swallowed hard. I didn't know who else to come to. I crossed my arms, leaning lightly against the wall. "What's going on?" The words tumbled out like a dam breaking. "I lost my apartment. Rent was late. The friend I was crashing with moved to Colorado. I'm picking up extra shifts at the cafe, but it's not enough. My mom can't help right now. I didn't even know if I should come here, but I didn't have anywhere else." I let the silence sit. She looked up. "There's something else I should have told you before." My jaw didn't move. I waited. She took a small step closer, voice barely audible. "During the divorce, I wasn't always faithful. Not physically, not at first, but emotionally. I stepped out long before we ended. There was someone from work. It didn't last, but it happened." I nodded once, slowly. She waited for the explosion, an insult, a bitter laugh, a slammed door. None came. I walked past her into the study, opened a drawer, and pulled out an envelope I'd prepared weeks earlier. Not for her, but in case someone I once cared about came back bruised by a world she thought she understood better than I did. I handed it to her. "This should cover 2 months. It's not a rescue, just a runway." She stared at it, blinking. "You're not even going to ask why?" "No," I said. "You came here because you knew I might be the one person who wouldn't throw it in your face. You were right." She took the envelope with trembling hands. "I don't deserve this." "I know," I said gently, "but I'm giving it anyway." Her chin quivered. "Why?" "Because I loved you once, and because letting someone fall isn't the only way to be finished." For a moment she didn't move. Then she stepped back toward the door. "I'm sorry," she said, "for everything." I opened the door for her. She walked out without waiting for a reply. I closed it behind her. Not angry, just final. The second time she knocked, I felt nothing. No anticipation, no dread, just stillness. The same stillness you feel when someone else rereads a chapter you closed long ago. Too late to rewrite the ending. It had been a quiet month. I'd filled it with small routines. Sunday mornings at the farmer's market, weeknight runs through the park, Friday jazz sets with Leo. The house had started sounding like me again, and now she was on the porch. Melissa wore jeans, a soft beige coat, no makeup. She didn't look broken this time, just tired, like someone who'd finally looked in the mirror and seen the outline of her own choices. "Hi," she said. I nodded. "Hey." She didn't ask to come in. Instead, she reached into her bag and pulled out the envelope I'd given her weeks before. "I don't need this anymore," she said. "I picked up more shifts, found a roommate. It's not much, but it's mine." I took the envelope and slipped it into my back pocket without a word. "And I came to say thank you," she added. She paused, then met my eyes fully. No defenses left, just honesty. "I know I said a lot during the divorce, and before. Things I thought were true, or wanted to believe were true, just to make myself feel better." I stayed quiet, letting her finish. But the truth is you were good to me. For a long time, I just didn't see it. I took your steadiness for granted. And when you stopped chasing, I mistook it for coldness. But you were just done carrying everything by yourself. Her voice wavered. I'm not asking for anything, she said quickly. Not forgiveness, not a second chance. I just needed to say it. I nodded slowly. I'm glad you finally understand, I said. She gave a small, sad smile. Me too. We stood there a few more seconds. No tension, no sparks. Just the quiet acknowledgement of two people whose story had run its course. Then I stepped aside gently, leaving the doorway open. Take care of yourself, Melissa. She nodded. You too, Nathan. She turned and walked down the steps. I watched her go, not hoping she'd look back, but ready for her not to. Then I closed the door behind her, not with anger, just peace. And that was the end of the story. Melissa returned the money and apologized. But was that genuine growth or just her way of easing her own guilt? If you were in her shoes, would you have come back to return the envelope or would you have stayed gone? Let me know in the comments. And hey, if this story pulled you in, hit that like button and subscribe. There's more where this came from,